All right, this is the second video instruction for Module 2, and in this video I'm going to instruct you in the areas of human landscape, most notably population and population density, and then also the metrics that characterize more and less developed populations. So we're going to start with the basic population parameters, and what I'd like to do is navigate to that first link. And what you'll notice here is that this is a NASA site actually, but it actually is the socioeconomic data aspect of it. So please go to the, over on the right hand side, you'll notice there are a series of maps. And what I actually want you to select is the coastlines option. Click on that and it will open up the viewer. And you can see that right here. It gives you the basic outlines of the countries. But what I want to do now is look at aspects of population and population distributions. And so we're going to be looking at two metrics of that. The first of which is the population count. And so if you click on the population count future estimates, these are actually pretty accurate estimates of human population across the globe. And so first thing to do always with a map is to evaluate the legend. And so if you look at this legend, these are actually population counts. This is gridded data, which means the counts are going into grid cells. And you'll notice over here that the range of values is from 0 to 100 at the lowest values to 1.75 million people at the highest value. It's worth noting, if you look at, for example, the United States, that the data very accurately reflects the urban distribution of population. And so if you're from Pennsylvania, I'm going to zoom in a little bit on Pennsylvania, and with this type of gridded data, it's actually quite easy to see how the population is distributed in each of the states, and that in fact it reflects the population beyond the county level. So again, look at total population, and again you're going to look at the 2015 values here. Then what I'd like you to do is go back in time. And so if you look at, for example, the Pennsylvania area here, now click on the population count in 1990. And the first thing that you should note is if you look at the entire global distribution, a very quick factor comes into play. This happens to be, again, the 1990 data, and I'm going to zoom all the way out. And what you'll notice, first of all, is the population count in 1990 has as its maximum value 700,000 people, whereas if you look at the population count 2015, we have to go all the way up to 1.75 million people to get a valid scale of data. So that suggests that in some areas population has grown sufficiently to make that change in the legend scale necessary. Now the other thing that I want you to look at here is the issue of population density. And population count is simply the number of people, but densities are put in place and they allow us to compare populations per square kilometer. So densities, again, are people per unit area, and in this case, per square kilometer. So again, let's look at the 2015 data, and you can see that throughout the world, the highest population densities are 250 plus people per square kilometer, and the lowest values here are 1 to 5 people. Now again, it's worth putting this in the context of where you are. And so I'm going to zoom in to the eastern part of the United States here. And in fact, you can see the aggregation of population associated with Pittsburgh and with Erie, again, along this portion here. And you can see the Manhattan concentration, very, very high population density. That gives you kind of a sense of what you experience. You'll notice that really nowhere in Pennsylvania, with the exception of up here in Allegheny National Forest, does our population drop below at least 5 people per square kilometer. Now look at that in the context of the global picture, or even in terms of Canada, and it's very easy to see that there's a strong delineation of high population density in the eastern part of the United States and low population density in the west, and extremely low population densities in Canada. Similarly, we can see these types of breaks in population density that we see, for example, in the Asian subcontinent, South Asian subcontinent here, in contrast to the Tibetan Plateau. Very different levels of population density. So what I want you to do again in this map is look at the distribution of total population and population density, and then put that in the context of each of the regions. All right, we're going to move now to the Index Mundi maps, and what I want you to do in this group of maps is to focus on the information on page 43 in your textbook. That's also table 3.1. What I want you to look at, again, is ideas of regions, world regions, but these are the measures of more and less developed nations, and that is MDCs and LDCs. And table 3.1 moves you through a series of parameters that often distinguish areas of the world. And so we're going to start with the first one, which is GDP, and this is gross domestic product. And you notice purchasing power parity. What that means is that the dollars used are in equivalent purchasing power. In other words, how much can you actually buy with a unit of money? And it's fairly simple to see in this how the world breaks out. You'll notice that, for example, sub-Saharan Africa has some of the lowest GDP levels, while the United States, Western Europe, and China actually run pretty high. Now we can change this from GDP purchasing power parity to other measures of per capita GDP. And what you'll see in these is some pretty interesting changes in how the population economic parameters divide up the world. And so I'm just going to take a few of these out, and what I'd like you to look at are a couple of the economic indicators, and usually that is GDPs. Those are real good measures of them. The other ones that I would like you to look at are those associated with demographics and, for example, life expectancy at birth. If I click on that, again, demographics, life expectancy at birth, then leave this as world and click on the submit button. It'll take a minute for this to load, but what you're going to see again is that the world will be very clearly demarked into our major regions. Again, it's very easy to see this line that divides the United States and Canada from Latin America. Life expectancy is a good way of discriminating North and South America. You can also see this in terms of sub-Saharan Africa versus North Africa and the Middle East, and very clearly how Western Europe divides from Russia and the Russian realm. So as you move through the indicators that you see in table 3.1, you should see some divisions in terms of our major world regions. Again, make notes of which of those indicators clearly identify regional breaks and which are really poor indicators of those breaks. That's what we'll be looking for in our quick write assignment. So that's the end of the second instructional module. Again, make sure you take notes as you move through these. You'll need those to answer your quick write assignment. We'll see you next time.